You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona Lewis, and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hi, I'm Rona Lewis.
And I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
Welcome to Biz-Souls. We get to the heart and soul of business and the people who make it happen.
You said that very well.
Thank you so much.
Yes, good. That was take like a million, so we're getting started.
We make it look easy, but we've been on this one sentence for what, an hour?
Yeah, well, this is podcast one of 1 million podcasts, so we have high hopes, right?
Yes, and you wanted to talk about being fatter.
Yes, fatter. Fun, we're going to have fun, we're going to have attitude, we're going to have transparency, energy, and we're going to be real. Get to the reality of things. So it's a fatter production.
Yes. And when we look down, it's because we have notes, because we want to make sure we don't forget to talk about anything that we've been working on to help you. So just to let you know.
Yeah, newscasting 101, we're the amateurs getting started on this thing.
And by the way, this is not a newscast. This is a conversation. We want to hear from you about what we talk about. And today we are starting with kind of something that's a little bit intense, I think. We're talking about fear.
We are talking about fear. And fear is a normal part of life. And we're going to talk about fear in business and its consequences. And we're going to give some ideas on ways to address that fear and make a better, safer environment for the people that work there.
Right. From our experience, from our 197 years of experience.
Yeah, exactly.
in the business world.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And while we're talking about this, all I can think of Sarah Silverman's thing on podcasts. And she does this great joke on podcasts. And, 8 out of 10 people are doing a podcast and 2 others are thinking of doing it. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay.
We're the 2 people.
We're the 2.
So now we get to join the large group and someone else will move up to our spot. And it just goes like that.
Exactly. Okay. So let's get on with fear. Look, fear's a normal part of childhood and it has a positive and a negative.
Well, and it's not only a normal part of childhood, it's a part of our entire lives. It starts in childhood, and it's how our fears get started. We are a product of our parents and our environment. So it's only natural, I'm a nice Jewish girl from Long Island. So, fear and anxiety and neuroticism is based in my culture.
Yeah, and that's well-intentioned, and it that's a positive side of it, being well-intentioned. It's like fear is good when you learn to fear a boiling pot of water and not touch it. Fear is bad in terms of you go and or you're in a school play and everybody laughs at you and you decide you're never going to try something new again. And the same with parents. They are giving us fear. Don't run, don't play with a stick, you'll poke out your eye.
That's right.
You're
going out dressed like that, and then we get fear of not looking right. So that's where it starts. And then here we are as adults in business, and it absolutely affects how we relate to each other, how we relate to our job and give ideas. And, it permeates everything.
Yeah. Well, we carry, I think what you're saying, Rona, is we carry a lot of baggage into work, all these fears. And, a lot of people do therapy. I did therapy. Did you do therapy?
I did do therapy.
I did therapy for a long time.
I believe in it.
And we're trying to get over our fears of childhood. And so we're trying to address them. Still, we don't always get over them. And it takes years. I mean, it takes a long time. I'm 64 and I'm still trying to get rid of some of this stuff from childhood.
I'm 27.
Yes, she is. Yes, yeah. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And they bring that into business. And those are the things that create normal conflict in work. Except it's not normal now.
Right.
What and I've got my ideas on why things have changed. What are your ideas? What is making fear such our first topic?
Look at the world as we know it is changing totally. With the pandemic, with climate change, with our political views being so polarized, with the media, and there's more ways than ever to connect, and people are so afraid of disconnecting and missing something. They're fearful about everything, and this even permeates work, that we are in a new normal, and there is fear that we won't be able to do it. But and I look at it, it's like, what was so great about the old normal? I try to put a positive spin on everything, because that's my play background, and 95% of the world is fear based like that, because of so many changes.
Well, to be specific, I mean, media is playing on fear, and businesses play on fear to get compliance. You don't do this, and now we've got the pandemic, and people are stuck at home. And one of the things, getting into neuropsychology a little bit, our brains are designed to run systems, and they run patterns. And they do that to create an internal psychological safety. The expression "the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know" is related to the fact that we'd rather do something badly as long as we know the outcome rather than try something new. And so you almost have to, your brain's not your friend. We have to fight our brain to create change. And now we've got all these external factors, and business and media and politics, they've taken the low road, and they're just playing on our fears. And the consequence to business, which we're going to talk about, is dramatic.
Yeah, and my business for a long time, years ago, I was in advertising, and I don't think there would be advertising if there wasn't fear.
Yeah.
It plays, and that goes to any of the businesses that are related to how people look.
Oh, you
The,
mean you mean I'm getting older, I'm getting wrinkles. Oh, I need Botox. Oh, let's get some cosmetic shirt.
yeah,
They never play fear in California.
yeah, right. That is very
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
And
yeah.
well, any of the big cities. I'm a New Yorker, and you lived in Pennsylvania for a while, so it is all over the country, and it's in the fashion world. I'm sorry, you're still wearing skinny jeans. I just read an article yesterday that now it's the boyfriend jean, so you're out of style. Well, how else can you? I'm afraid to go out of the house, and wear something poorly. And I was reading this whole last year and a half how the fashion industry was up in arms because everyone said, screw it, I'm just wearing sweats because no one's going anywhere.
I
So
get it. So, and some of the fears become clinical with people because they can't manage them. And I think that's the point that we're going into because of all the dramatic changes that are going on. They don't have a foothold of safety. And the people spend their majority of their time at work, sort of, because now a lot of people are working at home. And speaking of fear and working at home, remember before the pandemic, everybody said, "Oh, you can't work at home."
wrong. The leaders were wrong. So many of the corporations were, no, this is the way we do business. You have to be here, and they were wrong.
Yeah, they were wrong
And
because
now they're scared.
productivity has gone up. People are actually functioning better, and they're utilizing the time that they wasted on a commute to connect and try and connect with their families. Although people are driving each other up the wall internally.
Well, yes, and I just read that people are actually spending at least 5 more hours doing work than they used to, which is a good thing and a bad thing because they are afraid they're not keeping up with their teammates, and this is some of the negative consequences of working from home, is that they're paranoid, and they don't know what everyone else is doing, so there's a need to try to keep up even if they're overdoing it, and there's no break between work and home life. And I've mentioned this to you more than once. I don't believe in a work-life balance. I believe in life balance. Work is part of life, and that's what's becoming pervasive. There is no work-life balance because people are working longer out of that fear, and mental health issues are becoming more prevalent. You know.
So the
So
good
that fear is, sorry, go
the
ahead.
good side of working home then is they have an opportunity to be more productive. The negative side is if they're being more productive out of fear, and that's one of the things you're not hearing in the news is they're going, oh, everybody's more productive working at home. We should work at home more. Well, as long as people aren't being more productive out of fear, and that fear is coming from the isolation, the lack of connection at work, and also the fact that a lot, think of all the people that were let go when the pandemic hit. There
Right.
are companies that bragged about, oh, we retain our employees, they stay with us, and then, one little crisis happens, and oh yeah, you guys, thanks for 25 years of service. See you later.
Right.
I mean, it's a huge. People don't trust organizations
Well,
anymore.
and now we have the Great Resignation, where everyone is choosing to leave because of this antiquated corporate culture. They are a little bit more empowered. Workers are a little bit more empowered, or feel that way. They're saying that their issues aren't being addressed, and the issues are new issues, and corporations are of a lot. That's a very blanket statement. Not all companies are like that, but so many of them are. This is the way we've always done business, and we don't know how to change. And so these mostly younger people are saying our needs aren't being met. You guys are more concerned with the bottom line than with my mental health. And that's not, you guys are more concerned with the bottom line than with my mental health. And that's not good enough.
So let's kind of rethink this because we've been talking about fear in general, and now we kind of slipped into the consequences. Let's go into the consequences directly.
Yeah.
So business, we've talked about fear. We've talked about some of the way fears is growing, and we're saying that businesses should address it, and they should address it because of the consequences of fear. So the first thing is the human factor. And we've touched on that. There's the extra stress that people are feeling, the isolation, the not paranormal.
Well, no,
Too civil
yeah,
sounds like.
that's what I was just talking about. When people were work from home totally, they were getting paranoid because they didn't know what their bosses were saying, who they were talking to, if they had favorites from the team, and they didn't know what their teammates were doing. And the Zoom Friday happy hours just chatting with each other wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, they can't hear the gossip in the hallways. They can't go by the water cooler and find out what's going on.
And yeah, we are social creatures. We need that connection, and that's not what was happening.
Yeah, I remember working in companies, where the cigarette break, you found out more at the cigarette break, outside the rooms, all right, this is going on, this is going on. Oh, okay, great. That's not going on. You don't have that gossip had a bad side and a good side, I guess. People felt connected that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And with fear comes stress, and in that stress, you're talking about physiology. What happens with stress is that the brain kind of shuts off. It's that fight or flight thing, and they're less creative and they're less innovative because it's harder to get that feedback. You and I always have great banter. It's hard even on you can get some on Zoom. It's not quite the same as when you can see body language and look into each other's eyes to get that emotional connection for the creative and innovative workshops.
Yes, and going back to the stress thing, it's not just the brain that's changing. It puts more, too much stress puts pressure on all your organs, your bodily.
Your bodies, right?
Yeah,
Physically.
I mean,
Physically, right.
And people are they're going to suffer the consequences because that, what is it,
Cortisol. It's when your cortisol levels go up, right? That's what happens. There are two kinds of stress, and I'm just going to go through this real quick because we're not talking about stress, we're talking about fear, and they do go hand in hand. There's eustress and distress. Distress is the bad kind of stress when your cortisol levels stay elevated and that anxiety level just kind of stays there. And it may be low, but it's definitely there, and it affects everything. Eustress is when you get that fight or flight cortisol jump, and it goes back to normal when that scary thing goes away. So that can be helpful because that a little bit of stress and fear can push you forward. Like if you get deadlines, oh my God, that we have to get this done by then. And when you get it all together, awesome. Well, when you're in a state of constant fear and distress, like a lot of the work from home and even the hybrid workers are, that stress level and that fear is constant, and it definitely has a physical effect on you.
Sure, and then let's go to the extreme. People get they start reacting, they start blowing up at work.
They go crazy.
They go, yeah, and then you've got the extremes. I mean, sometimes people will harm themselves because of the stress of work added to everything else. And then the worst case, the most and innocents are getting hurt in this, is when they start getting violent at work because of it. And so these are real business consequences, and businesses are responsible for these things. And people have beefed up their security and everything else, except that security is based on stress levels that were a lot lower than they are now. People, you're hearing crazy stuff in the news. So we've talked a little bit about fear, some of the good, the bad. We've talked about the consequences to the business. Let's get on to some suggestions.
What can we do? Yeah.
Yes, what can we do about it?
And this just shows the high emotional intelligence that Jeffrey and I have, because we believe in being proactive. I was a VP of sales in the media world, and one of the things that used to drive me crazy was when people would come in and complain, or as we say, kvetch, about things without coming in with, give me a suggestion, give me an answer. I'm not always there for your situation, so what do you think? We're going to give our recommendations and suggestions from our experience, and we do want to hear from you, because every job, every person is different in their reactions and their suggestions. So when you hear this, connect with us. We'll give you our information after, and you can say, what are you guys, nuts?
Yeah. So the first thing we're going to talk about, is accountability.
Okay.
And leadership obviously has to be accountable. And the first point of accountability is they've got to actually realize that, hey, things are not the same that they are. They are going to have to do things differently. They're going to have to give this attention, whereas before they, was lower on the priority list. Now, this has become a high-level situation or a high-stress situation, or a high-reactive situation, or a high volatile, what would you say?
Volatile? Yeah, it is. Well, there is volatility.
It's dangerous. Yeah. We're at the danger level, which means we're kind of selling fear. We do a program on fear, and yet I think the reality is it is dangerous.
Well, and leadership is naturally going to look at bottom line first, and they have to learn to look at their employees' mental health first.
So not look at the immediate profitability, look at
down the road.
And not only profitability in terms of money, profitability in terms of taking care of their people.
Right, because changing over is almost as expensive. It costs a lot of money to retrain people and all that. So they leaders have to understand that change is inevitable at this point. They have to buy in to, and I hate to be cliche, but I have no choice in this matter. This is the new normal. This is the way business is going to be running from now on. And they have to be open to that, to be able to say, okay, what can we do to alleviate the fear, the fear of our employees, to get them at their most productive?
Well, and it's going to take an investment of money. for bringing in people that can work on this. It's going to, most importantly, it's an investment of time.
Right.
They're going to have to give their employees time to talk about this. They're going to have to make a safe environment for their employees to talk about this. And so the best way to do that is lead by example. And that's where leadership really has to buy in. And unfortunately, there are a lot of companies out there where leadership is hero leadership. I have to have all the answers. And yet those are the very people that are least likely to take action on this, because they think, well, I was they don't want to they don't want to feel responsible. And so because they don't want to feel responsible, they don't look at the problem, and they're going to have to dig into it. So in those cases, people are going to have to take care of their own accountability. And you're going to have to say, look, this is what's going on in my life. You're going to have to turn inside and see what's going on and try and manage it by taking care of yourself, trying to manage it by being eating healthy, taking care of yourself.
Taking breaks for yourself.
Yes, exactly.
And one of the things that is most important in any, and I'm going to say this, and it's like, oh, thank you, Captain Obvious. And it is obvious, and it's not always done, is good communication. And unfortunately, sometimes management, leadership, C-level, they don't communicate. And it does go both ways. Employees sometimes are afraid to talk about what's really bothering them because they may seem weak to their superiors, or I don't like the word superiors, to management. And there needs to be that transparency going up the ladder and down the ladder. And leadership has to be first, I think, to be transparent. What we're doing isn't working. Let's get suggestions from you guys, because you guys are, in the weeds. What's happening more than we do. And by that kind of collaboration, like one of your favorite books is by Ed Catmull, Creativity Inc. And they used to have company meetings where they had everyone from the security guard to the VP of finance give their opinions. And that's the best way to really see what goes on in a company, so that change can be made. And doing something like that facilitates trust, authenticity, and vulnerability. You cannot you can't have any of that safety, psychological safety that we mentioned at the beginning, without any of those. There is no safety without trust.
Yeah, and we're going into what we're trying to create with that. One of the things, full disclosure on our part, I'm from L&D, and so is Rona.
That's learning and development.
Learning and development. Yes. So hopefully you didn't panic when you heard L&D and go, "What is L&D? I don't want to create more fear." So L&D is looking at, what are the information pieces of information, or the topics of information we have to bring. And an important one is healthy conflict. Healthy conflict is good, so people learn how to deal with their disagreements, because unfortunately a lot of people didn't get that opportunity in childhood. School, they didn't have that opportunity in school, and because of their environment or whatever, I don't want to get into it. So they don't know how to have a disagreement on a topic. And you see in social media, people just attack. It goes into attack the person, not the idea. There's no discussion about the idea. People just, they polarize, and they take one side or the other. And again, that's what you practice, and how you practice is what you end up delivering. And so bringing in healthy conflict discussions into work gives people more tools that, if they practice on them, will learn how to have different conversations.
Yeah, and one of those tools is active listening, and that is super hard.
Very hard.
Yeah, because as humans in a basic conversation, most of the time we are thinking about what we are going to say next, as opposed to really listening to what the other person is saying. And taking ourselves out of it takes practice.
Oh, well, in the boardroom or in any kind of situation that involves decisions, most people come into a meeting, and when somebody gives a point, their first thought is, I agree or disagree with it, rather than investigating or inquiring about
Asking
getting
questions,
more
right.
information and asking questions. All of these are communication skills. And they don't just happen. You either were in an environment where people had these skills and you picked them up, organically, or you have to dedicate yourself to learning how to do it. And I can speak from personal experience. I didn't learn them organically. I've had to focus on the skills to work with them, and I still have a hard time listening in certain situations, like especially when Rona get. Never, we won't even go there. So
Because he's afraid I'm smarter than he is.
there you go. There you go. And then the final point I want to make on this is transparency.
Yeah. And that's an important thing that also facilitates trust. It's
Absolutely.
there is fear in leadership that if there is transparency, people will have less respect when it's actually the opposite. I think employees appreciate knowing what's going on, you know?
And I've been on boards where the entire board did not want to talk to the group they were responsible for because they were afraid, if they know that information, they're going to ask questions about it or they're going to react to it badly. Well, okay, now we got multiple problems. They don't know how to handle conflict. They don't know how to handle discussion. So yeah, you've got to give them all, and you all have to understand that there will be people that don't know how to have a discussion. And you just have to be willing to risk that. So again, it's that internal fear that has been going on for a long time. You combine that fear with the fear that's going on with people that are working for organizations, and that's where the truly tragic violence comes in, where you're starting to see people coming back to, you've got workplace shootings to be completely dramatic for it. And then there's just one other tool, and you know what? I got to tell you this. This has been new for me, and this is the way Rona and I connected, because getting people to change, there's always fear with change. As I said, earlier, your brain is not your friend. Getting people to change is very, very difficult, and there's actually a solution that will help people work through the stress of change, and this is
It's me. I'm your solution. It's just
Rona.
me.
It's absolutely Rona.
It's just me. I don't know how many of you know what my background is. I am an expert in play for corporations to help with corporate culture and engagement. And there is a science to play, purposeful, attuned, and it's about bringing people together. And play is critical to psychological safety. They learn better. They're more open to change when they're having fun and they're having a good time. And there's a method to the madness that you don't necessarily have to know the science behind it because you're never going to remember it. Just know that it works,
Yeah, so I'm a little more logical than that. So when Rona started talking about this, I'm like, yawn. Except I knew I had a problem. When we do organizational development projects, where we're going into a company and working with the culture on it, people react differently. And that gets back to that, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. What was driving me nuts, the people that bring us in to conduct a change would often be the very people that would want to kill the project because it meant a change in their power structure or doing something that they hadn't done before, like being transparent. And so they become fearful and they kill it. And so how do you transition over that? And Rona was talking about play, and she talks in terms of, how useful it is. There truly is a science to it, and that's what's been going on. So from a business standpoint, real quick, this is like storytelling. Storytelling has been trying to get in the corporate environment for 20, 30 years, and the leaders that were very effective did it, except in general it was poo-pooed. Storytelling, it's a soft skill, and it is not. And there's a whole science to storytelling. There's a whole science to play. And that the science, it's kind of like, a quick analogy is comedy. Like in comedy has rules, and they're like trips. And if you don't set
that's
something,
triples.
yeah, trip. If you don't follow that rule, then the comedy falls flat.
That's right.
And it's not just play, because in learning and development, a lot of us will pick games or icebreakers and
Yeah.
things like
You
that.
can't just pick something out of a book and throw a bunch of spaghetti against the wall.
It has to be analyzed. What is the issue you want to deal with? And then you have to step people through their fears to get them to open up and create that psychological safety.
Right. That is called attune play. You have to attune to people where they are psychologically, and that's part of what I do, and now we do as a business together. And it's it's not about competition. So it's not just about games. There are activities and exercises that bring people close, as opposed to the win lose connotation that games can have. You don't necessarily want the competition. Sometimes you might, and that attuned play goes back. There's attachment theory. It goes back to early childhood. I mean, there is a whole psychology.
And I've got
behind
Rona
it.
talking about her favorite subject, and I'm afraid, Rona, we're out of time, and that's a whole nother subject.
Right. And we actually will go through into that through another podcast. Just know that there are answers to the fear that is permeating society as and work. Go ahead.
And I'd summarize it. The main point of what we're doing is business. For business to be successful, to retain their people,
Right.
to take care of their people, they need to address the fear that's going on. And there are specific things that they can do to address the fears and make a healthier work environment. And the positive result of that is, if they're able to give them those skills in the work environment, it's an opportunity for business leaders. If they're able to do it in the business environment, those people will be able to carry those homes, and those tools will help them with the people they love and the people they care about most.
Right. The any tools for alleviating fear is not just for business. It's for life in general. There's that life balance thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's a responsibility of business and business leaders and business managers, supervisors, and it's a responsibility of everyone in an organization, no matter where you are. If you're working, you're the janitor in a business, you have an opportunity to make people's lives better. And I think we should do that.
Yeah. And if you stay tuned to future podcasts, we will do a little deeper dive into all these things and actually give you some tools and tips and tricks that you can take with you and give it a shot in the right situations.
Yeah, and so that's that basic subscribe thing that everybody talks about.
Yeah, you
if you
gotta
don't
come
subscribe,
back.
if you don't subscribe, you'll miss it. So we'll play it. No, that's not it. Look, if you enjoyed what you heard, stay connected with us. We'd love that.
All right, that's our time. That's our story. We're sticking to it. Again, I'm Rona Lewis,
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
and this has been Biz-Souls. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
And scene. Okay. You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week. And this is Biz-Souls. Biz-Souls takes the heart and soul of business. And I did it wrong again. You can say the tagline because I don't remember the tagline.
Okay.
All right.